These newspaper article readings are not for the faint-hearted or the squeamish. If you're at all sensitive, I might suggest these aren't for you. If in doubt, check the description below. It'll tell you which topics are covered in this particular episode. There's both human and animal suicides, and you heard that right. There's also horrific descriptions of injuries, as well as the deaths of youngsters. So don't do it to yourself if you're prone to nightmares, is all I'll say right now. Not all the articles are horrible. Some of them are uplifting, some of them show incredible bravery and heroism. There are near misses. So these were picked as showing life prior to health and safety, as well as for the crazy and curious details some contain, with other miscellaneous happenings that kind of struck me enough to post the articles to Twitter, despite not having too much relevance to Scotland necessarily. These are worldwide topics, and they didn't have any real connection to the projects I was working on and researching at the time. I just happened to have come across them by the way, kind of thing. So we'll get into them, shall we? What we're going to do here is we're going to do a lucky dip of newspaper articles to really mix them up a wee bit, because while I'm doing the researches, I'm obviously coming up with the same kind of terms and things. So we'll mix them up even further. So to that end, I have all of the newspaper titles and dates of the articles. What's in store today? Let's find out, shall we? Gee, there's still a few of these, man. Must have come across some bit of articles. Okay, we have, to start us off, the Edinburgh Evening News for the 28th of February 1906. Okay, we're starting with a fatal quarry accident at Longniddry. This morning, while some men were employed at lime kilns in the neighbourhood of Longniddry station, a huge bank of earth toppled over and 3 of the men, who were unable to escape, became entombed. Willing hands at once set about to rescue the entombed men, and when recovered, they were found to be in a critical condition. All of them were conveyed to the railway station to be sent on by the first passenger train to Edinburgh. One of them, named Gillis, belonging to Longniddry, succumbed to his injuries just after being taken into the guard's van. The other 2 were sent on to the Royal Infirmary, both being in a very serious condition. That's from the Edinburgh Evening News for the 28th of February 1906. We've come across quite a lot of entombings from researching the railway incidents, especially when rails are having to be blasted like through hillsides and raised ground. Seems to happen a lot. Also just weather and loose geology, can serve to make that happen. So, 1 out of 3 that were entombed died. At least 2 of them survived, I guess. Trying to find positives in that, but there aren't really too many. Try for another one. Let's see what we get. The Greenock Telegraph and Clyde Shipping Gazette for the 20th of July, 1905. See what the Greenock Telegraph has. We have a terrible airship accident. New York, Wednesday. At San Jose, California, yesterday a terrible accident occurred to the airship designed by Professor Montgomery. One wing of the aeroplane broke when the machine was 3,000 feet above the ground, and the airship turned over, and the operator, Mr. Maloney, was hurled to the ground. The body was terribly crushed. A crowd of about 2,000 people who had collected to witness the trial saw the accident. Among the crowd was a priest who made the sign of absolution for the ill-fated victim while he was falling. That's from Central News, as reported in the Greenock Telegraph and Clydeship and Gazette for the 20th of July 1905. Yeah, it's pretty bad. At least it was a trial. At least there was only the one person on board. Because I would have thought, had there been any more, they would all have been killed in this accident. I wonder about Professor Montgomery. I wonder if the guilt of his design having failed in such a way and cost someone their lives, I wonder whether that would have prevented him from pursuing that path any longer, or whether it would have served to make him more adamant to fix the design and make sure that such a thing never happens again. I kind of wonder which way he went on that, because I don't know. These airships, you see them like the Hindenburg and things, these kind of air balloon type deals. I mean, they seemed lovely. I don't know that I would trust one of them though. They are said to be, like nowadays, far more safe, and the gases used for lift are, like, they're not combustible, and I don't know. I don't think I trust them. Okay, we'll have another one. We have The Scotsman for the 28th of February 1906. We have a fatal shooting accident. On Monday afternoon, while a young man named Brown, who lived with his father at Birkenhead Farm, Lesmahago, was shooting over some of his father's fields, he accidentally shot himself in the right breast and died from his injuries in a few hours. Brown, on coming to a gate, had pushed his gun through it butt foremost, when something caught the trigger, with the result that the gun went off, the contents lodging in his breast. And that's for The Scotsman, 28th of February 1906. That'd be classed as a Darwin Award. That's pretty daft to point your own gun at yourself at all. Is probably a bad idea. But there we go. When something caught the trigger. Can't really imagine it happening, but it obviously happened. Okay, I'll have another. This is the Glasgow Courier for the 26th of June 1856. Bit of an older one. Okay, this is a bit more upbeat. A passion for sightseeing. We are told that 3 youths from the Gallowgate district went missing about 10 days ago, having left home, and no one knew whither, to the great anxiety of their relatives. One of the youths, a mere lad, has returned home, and states that he had walked all the way from Glasgow to Stafford and back for the purpose of witnessing Palmer's execution. Whether the devotion of this pilgrim to the gallows was repaid by a sight of the event, we have not ascertained. The other 2 boys have not yet cast up, and the returned lad denies knowing anything of their movements. That's from the Mail, as reported in the Glasgow Courier for the 26th of June, 1856. That's quite a trek. That's a hell of a trek. For Palmer's execution. Palmer was done for poisoning a male friend of his. And I don't know the details, but I came across it a few times while researching Glasgow Square Mile murders. Palmer had... his case was cast up quite a lot because I think it was the Madeline Smith case. They were saying that the fact that no one had seen her give the arsenic to Monsieur Longniddry didn't really mean anything, as in the case of Palmer, there were medical men in the room and present while Palmer was giving his victim poison-laced drinks and things. He almost got away with it. I'm not entirely sure how he was found to have been guilty, but yeah, he served his dues. He got. So, yeah, it's quite the trek for a Glasgow lad to bog off down to Stafford and then come back again. I don't know. I think once I was there, I'd just be like, oh, I'm just here now. May as well find a job and a place to stay in that, like. Let's see what we have for last article, shall we? We have the Dundee Evening Telegraph for the 5th of March, 1907. Right, Jings, what a way to end this episode. We have a few articles from this newspaper. First, we start with Train Tragedies Leap from Railway Carriage. Engineer cuts his throat. A sensational affair occurred on the Great Western Railway near Harbury, 6 miles from Leamington yesterday. A passenger in the Bournemouth train suddenly threw himself out of a carriage window whilst the train was travelling at a considerable speed. His fellow passengers pulled the communication cord and the train was stopped. The man, who was about 35 years of age, was found on the line badly injured about the head. He was taken to Leamington and removed to Warnefort Hospital in a precarious condition. His injuries are likely to prove fatal. The man, who was well dressed and carried a ticket from Reading to Birmingham, has not been identified. Restless traveller puts an end to his life. A verdict of suicide whilst temporarily insane was returned at the adjourned inquest held by Coroner Cochrane at North Ormsby yesterday concerning the death of Edward Humphrey White, 34 years old, an electric tram driver of Belfast who was found with his throat cut in a train at Marske on Thursday. William Holmes said he travelled from Darlington to Saltburn by the 9:15 a.m. train on February 28th, and on arriving at Middlesbrough, White got into the same compartment. At South Bank, deceased got out and went into another compartment, leaving his luggage beside witness. At Redcar, White came back to the compartment, but as the train was moving, he got out again and jumped into a first-class carriage. He noticing nothing strange about the man, who only seemed to be restless. Robert Johnson, porter at Marske station, deposed that while collecting tickets he found White in a kneeling position in a first-class carriage. Blood was running out of the compartment, and when he lifted the man up, he saw he had a wound on his throat. A razor was found on one of the seats. White was removed to the North Ormsby Hospital at Middlesbrough, but was dead on arrival there. Dr. Hallree of Marske, who examined deceased before his removal to the hospital, said the wound on the man's throat extended from ear to ear, the windpipe being severed, and he thought it was a hopeless case from the first. Shot with a carbine. On the arrival at Burdett Road Station yesterday afternoon of a Great Eastern train from Ilford to Fenchurch Street, London, the dead body of a gentleman was found in a first-class compartment with a carbine lying between the legs. Death was caused by a bullet wound through the head. On the body was found a railway privilege ticket bearing the name of MacDonald and an address at Forest Gate. Other documents were found on the deceased giving the same name and address. It is understood that deceased was an officer in a volunteer corps. And that run of articles was from the Dundee Evening Telegraph for the 5th of March, 1907. What is going on? What was that, like 3 men having killed themselves in varying ways on the railways or in the railway carriages? The railways were a magnet for the suicidal. There are a lot of suicides attached to the railways. Not mainly in carriages or committing suicide by jumping out of windows, or when you fell out a carriage, it tended to be by accident. Maybe the door opened just randomly, maybe it wasn't locked properly. Maybe you exited out of that door instead of into a compartment by mistake. Suicides on the line tended to be people actually putting themselves on the tracks in order that the train itself would kill them. And I can't understand that drive. I understand that people can get to a point in their lives where they feel like going on isn't for them, that there's no pointer, or it's too much of a trial to continue. I understand that. But the inability to look ahead to the aftermath, to consider in any way those who are going to find you, I think that's something that women maybe do more. Women are less likely to kill themselves in a way that leaves much of a clean-up necessary. I don't know, but that's quite the flurry of incidents as reported in the Dundee Evening Telegraph. And unfortunately, that's how we're finishing this episode. So, let me see you for the next one.